This video is about how Iran has surprised the US and Israel, how they have changed the terms of battle with their surprising resistance. As they say, no plan survives contact with the enemy. Or as Mike Tyson would say, everyone has a plan until they are punched in the face. But before I go there, friends, please like, subscribe, share whatever content you like of mine, short or long videos. We don't have enough subscribers yet. As you know, a lot of effort goes into these videos. So starting off, Semaphore reports that Israel is running out of interceptors. Not yet the US, but reports are that Israel is running out of its major US supplied interceptors. They still have their Iron Dome, but that's only for short-term interceptions. They also have their fighter aircraft, which they can use for interceptions, but that is not as efficient as using the US supplied THAAD and Patriot missiles. US still has its interceptors for its own bases, etc. But as you know, Iran's firings have not stopped. They have come down a lot. That is by 90% ballistic missiles, by 95% drones, compared to the first few days of the war. But it's enough. Even if you fire a few missiles, a few drones every day at American bases, at the GCC countries, and at Israel, that's sufficient to keep the war going. The Strait of Hormuz is also still blocked because of Iranian mines, their fast attack craft. The second news that is coming is that the US is moving its 31st Expeditionary Marine Force from East Asia. It's usually based in Japan to the Middle East. Soon it will be arriving there. Basically, they will be used to get rid of the Iranian fast attack boats and troops in the small islands around the Hormuz. With the help of American aircraft and support vessels, they will do raids on these islands, etc. That's the plan. Trump is asking a wide range of countries to also send their naval fleets to escort the tankers across the Gulf and through the Hormuz. But they are unlikely to respond very quickly. The reason being, Americans don't want to use their own ships. They have enough ships there. They're not using their own ships because they're afraid that Iran might use either anti-ship missiles or mines. And so if any ship is struck, there will be a large casualty count. You know, ships usually have anywhere between 300 to 600 sailors, officers, etc. So any explosion can result in hundreds of deaths. It's also being reported that not only Russia, which is of course helping Iran through its satellites, through its sensors, providing them eyes to see battle damage, targeting, using AI as well. But even China is entering into the mix by providing missile fuel, by providing their navigation system, their satellite, the Baidu system, which is the alternative of the US GPS system. Oil continues to rise in price and stock markets continue to fall. And as I've told you repeatedly, this is very important for Trump because if oil rises, affordability becomes a problem for Trump. He needs it because re-elections are about to happen for American Parliament, that's Senate and the House in November. Republicans, his own party, and his own MAGA base is against this war. They're trying to pressurize him to quickly bring it to an end. Trump is also trying in his own way, but the Iranians don't seem to be ready. And also the objectives of the war have not yet been met fully. The GCC countries are providing their own pressure on Trump and the Republicans for the simple reason that their economies have flatlined. They will anyway go into a deep recession even if the war finishes today. And with each passing day, their difficulties increase. Not just their airlines and their tourism, on which about 30-35% of their GDP depends, but mainly their oil exports and also their reputation as safe havens, because of which there were huge investments in their real estate, etc., by foreigners, by foreign investors. They fear that any escalation by Israel and America on Iranian oil terminals, on Iran's infrastructure, the way Israel is going specifically, that is, both Israel and America are destroying Iran's industrial base. They want a Syriafication of Iran, as I've explained earlier. They would like it if Iran were to experience state collapse, fragmentation and civil war. That's why they've been encouraging the Kurds to attack as well. The Kurds themselves are holding back. Regime change doesn't also appear to be on the cards. There was a recent video just a day ago where there was an open protest in Tehran, and not just Arakchi, not just Pezeshkian, but Ali Larijani, who's the effective head of Iran right now and of all its military forces, was roaming openly and giving statements. There is a $10 million reward for Ali Larijani and Mushtaba Khamenei, the supreme leader, and others, which means the Americans don't know, Israelis don't know where they are. They're not able to target them, whereas they're roaming openly in the streets of Tehran. And the reason that regime change hasn't happened is because nobody has risen up within Iran for many reasons. One, nobody wants to risk their life while combat is going on, when bombs are falling. Secondly, there was never any organized opposition within Iran. Yes, there are people who are against the government, but they're not organized, they don't have weapons, there is no ground plan. Thirdly, the Iranians are also seeing that this is not just a war against the regime or the government, but also against the Iranian people, because their industries are being destroyed, their cultural sites are being destroyed, their water infrastructure, oil infrastructure. And as Trump said, the war may not end with the same borders of Iran. That is, they are even encouraging not just a civil war, but a kind of insurgency and fragmentation. And at the end of the day, most Iranians are still patriots. So the US and Israel don't know how to end this war, because if the same regime remains, it could make a dash for nuclear weapons after the war is over. It could continue to hold the region and the global oil industry as hostage. But if the war cannot be ended in that way, then conflict will continue. Oil will continue to surge, stock markets will continue to fall. So some people have even speculated that a ground invasion may happen, but this is highly unlikely in my opinion, because Iran is 5 times the size of Iraq, 3 times the population of Iraq. If it took them 10 years to get Iraq in order and still they had to withdraw, 20 years in Afghanistan and still had to withdraw, then they're hardly likely to be able to control Iran. And the number of deaths would not be tolerated by either the American public or Trump's own MAGA base. So this option, I think, is unlikely. There are other smaller ground forces that are being conceived, primarily in 3 ways. The first is to take Kharg Island. Kharg Island is that oil terminal through which 90% of Iran's oil flows. The island is important because large tankers cannot come along port side. There's not enough depth in the water in most of Iran's port. So they come along this island. So the theory is, let's take this island as hostage and then bargain with Iran. I don't think Iran is going to play that kind of a bargaining game. The second option is, as I've explained in a previous video, that there are about 450 kilos of highly enriched, 60% enriched uranium in Isfahan in the tunnels. That's a speculation. They don't know if this has already been dispersed in other parts of Iran. To send special forces, Israeli and American, and either destroy that uranium or capture it and bring it back. This is also a highly risky option because there are chances of fatalities and deaths. Just like in the Kharg Island case also, there could be fatalities and death. The third option which is being speculated is that you embed special forces with the Kurds, etc. But the Kurds are very few in number. They have just 3,000 to 4,000 forces available, and they themselves are reluctant. And where they are based, that is the Iraqi Kurds, they are also against this. The Kurds that are being speculated for attack are the Iranian Kurds. But the Iraqi Kurds who host them are against it because they don't want to be targets of Iranian missiles. And I've already explained the fourth ground option, which is to use the Marine Expeditionary Force to take over the small islands around Hormuz in order to prevent Iranian fast attack boats and open up the Hormuz Strait. The Iranians would of course welcome, as Arakchi's open statement, that we welcome ground troops, because that would give them a chance to increase the casualty count. You see, Iran's whole strategy is to drag out this war, increase the costs on Israel, on America, on the global economy, so that they don't return another 6 months later, as they have done in the past. That this will be once and done. So they say, okay, we'll take whatever losses we have to take this time, increase the cost in terms of men lost, financial costs, also costs of weapons, etc. That has also ballooned. The first 6 days of the war, according to the Americans themselves, have cost $11.3 billion. This is, according to most experts, an understatement. The actual number in the first 6 days itself would be 15-20. And as you know, we are already 16 days into the war, and the war doesn't look like finishing. So the final number could well exceed $100 billion. This would be an additional expense. Okay, for an American economy which is so large, this may not make significant difference, but for Trump's political supporters and for Congress, this may make a big difference. In fact, Congress is discussing whether we should pass the supplemental funding bill, which the Trump administration has asked, Republicans are in favor, obviously they are in his party, but the Democrats are increasingly opposed to sanctioning further expenditure. And this will come to a head by the end of March. As I have explained, the end of March is another critical date for one more reason. Oil prices may just shoot past $200 by this time. The oil market is right now subdued because it is accepting Trump's version that he's going to end the war soon. They know also that Trump is following a policy of taco, that Trump always chickens out. He knows that the stock market is very important. He keeps his eye on that. So they know that he's not going to damage in the long term, both his own standing and that of the Republican Party and of the United States. So they are anticipating that the war will end. But there's another bigger danger, as I've explained in a previous video, that the American stock market hasn't taken as big a hit as some in South Asia or East Asia have done. That is, it has not declined by 10% or more. The reason is American investors in the S&P 500, NASDAQ, etc. believe that this war will end by the end of March. If it doesn't, they will know that interest rates are not going to come down because inflation is going to increase. Therefore, interest rate cannot be brought down. That means that the stock market bubble which America is in could burst, especially the AI bubble. And if that AI bubble bursts, there are hundreds of billions of dollars, trillions of dollars literally actually, by some estimates more than $3 trillion invested in this. A large amount of that is on loans. The cost of those loans increasing will mean the profitability of those companies, which are right now good, will immediately go down. And therefore, the pricing will fall. If the stock market crashes, it can lead to a global financial crisis, not just an American financial crisis. This will lead to a global depression. Firings, mass firings, expensive due to the oil shock, plus due to the recession, prices of goods going up, completely opposite to the promises that Trump had made during his election and after that. If you want more details on that, please watch my previous video where I explain the global impact of this war. Thus, coming back to Iran, sure, much of Iran is destroyed, but Iran has sprung a surprise. Trump, who was expecting the war to end in 4 days, now doesn't know when this war is going to end. He keeps shifting, he keeps giving new dates. Sometimes it's a few days, sometimes a few weeks. And Iran has kept maximalist demands for agreeing to end this war. That is, they want full reparations for the damage done, they want a Palestinian state, they want an end to the bombing in Lebanon. And they know that without an end to the sanctions, they are never going to economically fully recover. So they want an end to that as well. Barring that, if the Iranian government survives and there is no deal, then they could well make a dirty bomb, even with the fuel that they have. It is sufficient for a few Hiroshima-sized bombs. And if they were able to purify that, that of course may take a long time, maybe a few years. They can even make up to 10 Hiroshima-sized bombs with that fuel. Moreover, the outcome of this war may make people realize, as I have explained in a previous video, that we have truly entered a third nuclear age. That is, Turkey could go for a nuclear weapon, maybe some other Middle Eastern countries also, because currently the two countries attacking both have nuclear weapons. Both Israel and America are nuclear weapon states. And as the North Koreans told the Americans, Trump himself in their negotiation, that we will never give up our nuclear weapons, because they quoted Libya. Because Libya did not have nuclear weapons, you destroyed it. Which means, with these lessons, even some countries in East Asia may go down that route. Possibly Japan, South Korea, who knows, maybe even Taiwan. So through its resistance, Iran is also creating a new world order, not just a new Middle East. Of course, the problem remains with Israel. That is, Trump's foreign policy remains Israel first. That is, Israel should be the hegemon. And if Iran gets so weakened, it was the only block for that, blocking agent. Israel may well become the new hegemon of the Middle East, but it will set in motion a range of dominoes, falling dominoes, which could lead to a nuclearization of the existing global order. So until next time, keep watching and please share my content. Thank you.